I guess we're on. Good afternoon, Golden Black Live, and you see Stacy and Kyle, and you even see me on the list there, and welcome to the show. I want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day, State HGI tonight, Triple X, and the good folks, Kerry and Greg Erzman, at Purdue Tradition since 1929, John Basham and Basham Rental, already taking rentals for 2017-18 school year. That doesn't seem possible. And, of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. And also, a kind of a house reminder, too, if you have questions, you can send them in the chat room. We will look at those. We haven't had a lot of those of late, and if people are shy out there, by all means, ask us questions. We'll do our best to answer. We will have Landon Feichter on in segment 3, but we're going to start in segment 1. Purdue Northwestern tomorrow. The Boilermakers at home, noon kickoff, and it will be a challenge. Obviously, all games I think are going to be challenges for Purdue. But your breakdown of this, the Wildcats obviously are not going to score 27 points. That's another story. But why? What's the biggest challenge that Northwestern brings to Purdue?
They will score more than 27.
Okay. We have a little side bet that I really stuck my.
We don't endorse gambling.
No, we don't. But it's a side dollar
Small.
wager. But I'm way behind Stacy. Go ahead, Stacy. Let me not interrupt. What about Northwestern in terms of really? This is a good team, a good 4-5 team. Somebody said they were the best 4-5 team in the country. I don't know who said that, but what do you see tomorrow, Stacy?
Huh?
Is it him?
Louis Vaquer said that from a Wildcat
Okay.
Report.
I was like, I don't know the answer to that
Okay.
question. Okay. I don't know what we're talking about right now, so I'm
We're
just going to
talking
start
about
talking.
Northwestern and what you expect as a overview of what you expect to see tomorrow.
I think that from a balanced perspective, Northwestern's offense scares me if I'm Purdue. It doesn't scare me because I really don't care. But I think, Justin Jackson hasn't been good lately, but that doesn't mean anything in my opinion because I think he is a very good running back who has had success against Purdue in the past. I expect that to continue tomorrow with a big performance by him. I'm going to put 150 on it, but let's just throw that out there. And also, Northwestern's quarterback doesn't suck, and sucky quarterbacks against Purdue have done well. So a good quarterback against Purdue, I don't know what that looks like. We're going to find out on Saturday. And they also have the Big Ten's best receiver, and Purdue's secondary is not very good. That is just my very quick, very positive synopsis on Purdue's defense versus Northwestern's offense. I don't envision any scenario in which Purdue can stop them.
If you look at it from the other side of the ball,
Hence
too,
45.
Okay, 45.
Okay.
She said, go ahead.
I think that Purdue has lived offensively on the big play recently. That's how they've scored often, not every time, but often. And I think that Northwestern's defense is going to try its best to keep D'Angelo Yancey, Cameron Posey, and the rest of those guys from going over the top. And, Purdue's going to have to score on drives that are 10, 12 plays. I think Stacy made a good point on the podcast earlier saying that, I know,
Can you
hard to
see?
believe.
I have like the emoji like with the big eyes.
It's
Yeah.
your first one of the season, probably last. That could benefit Purdue in some way because it will keep the defense off the field. However, I just don't know that if Purdue can repeatedly move down the field in long drives without doing something to shoot themselves in the foot, give Northwestern an extra possession. And if we've seen in the last few weeks, when Purdue has done that, the opponent has taken advantage in the the half
Purdue-
and gone on to win.
Well, remember that
There have been long drives.
Yeah, long drives. I would say that Purdue did not really go over the top last week. Those were two relatively short passes that got behind guys. I mean, the only,
Well, but
yeah,
the result was that
Big
they're
plays.
big plays. And I think that
right.
even short passes, Northwestern's not going to allow. They're not schemed to, or they are schemed to prevent even those short passes from being able to get
Yeah.
past that last line of defense. So, that D'Angelo Yancey slant, if it's against Northwestern and they're playing correctly, goes for 10 to 15 yards
As
and
does
not.
Posey's.
Yeah.
Because it was,
Oh yeah.
as
was
zone
Minnesota in the
defense.
second half because they did make some adjustments to close that in. Some and that
They did,
wasn't-
but not as much as people think. I don't think. I think that there was a general feeling that in the second half, Minnesota didn't play any, cover zero and was all zone, and that's not the case if you go back and watch.
But anyway, Northwestern's not going to let that happen. It wouldn't
Correct.
think.
It will be interesting to see what Northwestern's strategy is in terms of bringing pressure, though, because, like Jared Parker said this week, they typically aren't that big, heavy, blitzing kind of team. But when you see what teams have done who do that, against Purdue this season, they have had tremendous success in getting to David Blau and really messing up Purdue's offense. So it's almost kind of like, why wouldn't you, even if that's not who you are? You know, the way Minnesota was just completely confusing Purdue, dropping guys out, and, you know, I was really impressed with the way Minnesota just schemed or, you know, pressured or whatever word you want to put on that last week, especially in that second half, to really change that game. And if you're Northwestern, shoot, take some chances. And also, we would be remiss not to mention Northwestern has the Big Ten sack leader.
What's his name?
Yeah. It is very long that I cannot pronounce, and I would prefer not to
Pronounce it.
butcher it.
I would
I
give you
can
the-
spell it.
Okay, spell it.
O-B-E-D-I-N-G-O.
I don't know where there's pronunciation guide is. I love that part of the show.
There
that
is
we
no
can-
pronunciation guide in that, I don't think,
I
'cause I
didn't
looked
think so
already.
either, because I couldn't find it either when I had to pronounce his name earlier.
But he has 8. Is that good enough? I know he's the Big
And
Ten
had
leader,
that,
and he has
we
8.
haven't figured out that one hit against Michigan
think he's
State,
number
which was
7.
nasty.
Yeah.
They can do, why wouldn't you bring pressure against Purdue, though?
Because of what Kyle said, I think. If you don't get it, Purdue's taking it to the house.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that David Blau has shown if he can get it out of his hands
Yeah.
and see those things, something before, and can find the right guy, then they have the capability to hurt you with it. Now, do you balance? Can they hurt you enough? I personally don't think they can.
If it's 3rd and 7 or longer, I'm dialing up the pressure, no
Yeah.
doubt, because I think that I can get there if I'm the defense before Purdue can deliver that ball. With the state that Purdue's offensive line is in, now down, we would think, we don't know what Mike Mendez's status is. It would seem that he probably is out for this weekend. Purdue's down to 5. Now, it's probably their best 5 right now. But 5 and then
Yeah.
cliff.
Well,
I mean, to the next guy, it's
Yes.
a significant
experience.
step.
We
No
don't even-
experience. I mean,
We
the
don't
next
even
guy
know who
hasn't
the
even
next guy would
played.
be.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking about this earlier. Like, we literally aren't even sure who the next guy would be. Because even if you lose a tackle, I just don't see them putting Jalen Neal back in a game ever. Like, I just don't see that happening.
I think that the next guy, I
never
think
this
you're,
year, I'd say that's.
we know nothing about Eric Swingler's status, but
He
if
would-
he's healthy after tearing his ACL in the spring, then he's got to be the next guy.
And he's a
And we're talking
walk-on.
about a walk-on who's never played.
Right.
Like, maybe he's played at the end of a game last year or something, but I don't know.
I don't think so.
If Stacy doesn't know that he's played with the way she looks
probably
at
hasn't.
it, he probably has not, so I'm not going to cross that bridge from that standpoint. You know, you look at Markel Jones and the fact that he has struggled, and whether it's all on him, obviously it's not with the injuries, et cetera, and the lack of good run blocking, good up front to push. Is it that, or is it what I mean? how do you
He's
do-
getting hit at the
Yeah.
line every time.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from maybe 20% of his carries where he's able to get a couple yards downfield before somebody touches him, but I'd like to see the stat, and I think I've heard it before, though I haven't heard it recently, of how quickly a running back gets hit after taking the handoff. I think for Markel, it's got to be almost immediately, and for any Purdue running back. They're getting hit at the line. There are no holes. For as much problems as Purdue's offensive line has pass blocking, and that's not all on them. I mean, Purdue has issues pass blocking in general, but they also can't run block.
It's crazy to me because, and granted, obviously the level of competition has increased as the season has gone, which is not insignificant. But I think we thought that the interiors especially were playing well, not just, like early in the year where, okay, yeah, maybe you had questions about the tackles, but those guys inside looked like they were doing
Yeah.
a really good job. And just, that's been more the surprise to me lately is that those guys seem like they're not, being as efficient or whatever word you would
Right.
use. I don't know, physical maybe, but that part is surprising to me because you would have felt really good about Jason King and Jordan Roos especially, and I think I've been surprised generally with Kirk Barron this year. But
Though
those
I don't
guys
think Barron's had
lately-
his best games here
I
in the
agree,
last
especially in pass
stretch.
protection. I would
Yeah.
agree. But so I think that's
But
been
is that
interesting.
scheme on the other side too, a little bit of, I don't know, stunning issue or what on the pass rush game?
I don't think Sermon being out, I don't think has helped in run blocking either. I think he's
Yeah.
pretty significantly better than Mendez. He's a lot more experienced than Mendez. I think Mendez could, have a bright future, maybe not at tackle. He seems to be an interior guy, but I think not having Sermon out there has hurt them. He had a really good, Purdue blocked well against Illinois. I think Illinois' front probably is not very good.
Yeah.
Certainly not as good as what we were led to believe going into that game. But Sermon
certainly won
blocked.
that game, yeah.
Sermon blocked really well in that game, and that was the last one he played in significantly, right? So Purdue's had some issues since then.
Yeah, and depth is going to be one of those that will continue to be a challenge, and challenge for the next guy. I mean, I heard some comments maybe on the radio show just about the whole notion of, so just when does this get better? You know, you look at Purdue next year and a schedule that's going to be difficult for even if Nick Saban takes the job at Purdue next year, which he's not going to. But you have some real challenges, not only with schedule, but also with depth. And there are a lot of guys that are going to be leaving after this year. Senior day becomes a sad one in terms of some guys that have been pretty productive that aren't going to be here next year.
Well, how are you going to replace those receivers? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about their top 4 receivers are seniors, with Yancey, Posey, Damo, and Marshall. So you don't have Terrence Landers looks the part, but if he was closer to playing the part, he would be playing some. And he's just, aside from I think one snap at Minnesota, he's not. Now he could make a big leap. He's going to need to make a big leap because somebody's going to have to play.
Have to happen.
This is going to be a most likely sub 500 team after the season, and you're losing a lot of guys who you just, as you look at the roster right now, they're not replacing. They're just not. You're not replacing Replogle. You're not replacing Panfil, who's had a great year, above average year, good year. You're not replacing. You're not replacing those offensive linemen, certainly, and you're not replacing those receivers. So, and you're getting much more difficult schedule next year.
Yeah, well, and that is true. You start off with Louisville.
Not to be a downer, but.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, but so a new coach comes in here and starts to look junior college. I mean, you're going to have to do you're going to have to find somebody that can immediately come in and play at a receiver position, which they've done in the past. Purdue has been able to get guys. You can debate whether they were serviceable on the front end, but I mean, it's going to be a huge challenge.
That's my thing with the junior college route. We were even looking, because we're talking about our next magazine already, and it's kind of like, okay, we're writing about the newcomers. And so if we include the JC guys in that list, you got 4 guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could argue 3 of the 4 have not worked out so far, And,
Right.
and I think generally speaking, it's fair to say they're better in year 2, right? Junior college guys are usually better
Sure.
the second year, even though you're bringing them in because you need them to be good right now,
Right.
at least in Purdue's case. And so I understand why you would have to do that maybe, but I just don't know if I subscribe to the theory that it helps you a lot based on the recent junior college guys Purdue has had and how well they've done in year 1.
And I would go ahead.
Yeah, you're going to have to get a higher quality
Yeah.
JC guy. I mean,
And they haven't had, if you look over the years, and I think it does become relevant of how Purdue's done it over the years, there just haven't been that many that have come in. I mean, you go back to Randall Lane, we're talking about receivers that came in and made an impact in their first year, and that's the quality, and I'll go back to another position, Aiken Ayadel, who was a highly regarded guy that they had got to come in. You're going to have to get the kind of junior college players the top teams are getting, and then you're back in the same boat.
And when you're talking about those names, I've never even heard of the first guy. And then,
Yeah.
Ada, I'm just talking about in years. Like,
Yeah.
you're talking
You're
about
talking
20
about-
years.
Yeah, 15.
yeah.
Drew Brees.
You know what I
17,
mean? But it's like,
yeah, exactly.
we're talking about a long time. So, I mean, even in the last 20 years, it's kind of like you just hit or miss, more miss than hit.
Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt.
Dominique Young,
I would guess the
good this
percentage-
year, not so good last year.
Correct.
David
Yep.
Hedelin, not so good his first year, pretty good his senior year. I mean, just in terms of.
Yeah, I would say-
Yeah,
I would say
Headland would have been at the top of the class in terms of talent, though, coming in.
Probably,
Emerson, I mean, without question,
Right.
in terms of what they've gotten, in my view.
I would
Right.
guess that the percentage
But I agree
that
with
you've
your
seen
assessment.
this year is about the percentage overall, probably, maybe a little bit higher overall, but you're looking at a percentage success rate for JC guys is lower than what you'd wanted.
Right.
You're just taking a chance. You're taking a chance that you can get a more physically developed guy to plug in to a place where you have a significant hole.
And the pecking order is still the same. I mean, back in the days, again, dating myself a little bit, but not all of them. It's Bill Snyder at Kansas State, who's gotten historically the best junior college guys, and they come in and play, and they've been up to a certain level of success, and it's been hard for Purdue to be able to get that kind of situation. But yeah, it doesn't paint the rosiest picture for the next person coming in. He's going to have to make a fundamental choice also of how do you strategically do this. Do you patch it? Do you really suck it up literally and look at a schedule next year where you may not be favored in a game next year, with maybe the exception of Ohio University? Not a bad team, by the way. So that's where it's going to be a challenge.
That's a good point. I mean, maybe you don't go the JC market because it's going to be a build,
Yeah.
a major rebuild. And it'll be interesting to me to see how Mike Babinski and the new coach together build the message, I think, for fans once that happens in December, because I think that it's critical that people understand here that this is not going to be, in my opinion, a Joe Tiller type 1997 turnaround. There is not.
The
There's
number of 5 NFL players on that roster coming in
Yeah,
to Joe
there
Tiller's
is-
first year.
There is not the personnel.
0.
Yeah,
As of
and
right now.
and there were other guys who were pretty good.
Oh,
who
yeah.
were not NFL players.
Absolutely.
In that transition.
Absolutely.
That did Joe a whole lot of good. And, as we, I've said this, that in my opinion, every year since Joe's last year, the depth of talent at Purdue has gone down every year, steadily declined to where we are right now. And nobody has been able to, Danny Hope wasn't able to reverse it, and Daryl Hazel certainly wasn't able to reverse it. And now the next guy is going to have to stop that, or, I don't know, or you keep trending that way. I mean, it's got to change.
I do think, to be clear, there are some young, talented players on this roster right
Yeah,
now. There
I
aren't
think so.
enough of them, but there are some for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, David Plow is a sophomore. We talked a lot about
Absolutely.
David, as we should be. Markel Jones is a guy who is injured, but he has shown promise, obviously. I love Marcus Bailey at linebacker. This is
Sure.
his first year playing. You
Eddie
can look
Wilson.
at Eddie Wilson, Navon Mosley. I mean, we can give you 8
Even
to 10.
Lorenzo Neal has
Yeah,
a
I mean,
guy
we can
that
give you
can-
8 to 10 guys who are
absolutely.
underclassmen on this roster that you can build around. The problem is you only have 8 to 10, and that's what, that's what this whole building process is going to be. But I think just to balance that a little bit, I completely agree with everything you guys are saying, but there are guys here now who are young, who are working the right way, who have the right personality, that it's a good character group of guys to build
Absolutely.
around
I
for
agree
the
with that.
guys, whoever comes in to take over this program.
And I will also say that you can't, you're not going to damn anybody at this point because there is always chance for guys to improve. There is a chance.
sure.
We have seen some signs of Jared Parker's approach to a little more enthusiasm, a little more get up and go, and it has changed some things. How much, we haven't changed it to a win. So I'm not saying that you absolutely can't, but if you look at the numbers and you look where they're coming from, someone's going to have to make a fundamental decision on, is it rebuild, is it to try to somehow patch, and I don't see, even if you try to patch and win, that it's going to be easy. It's not
They
going to be
needed
easy.
this schedule next year.
Absolutely, and this is a
And what are you going to do? I mean,
it's
you
a
don't,
huge challenge.
you don't
and
get
this
it,
is a
but I
huge,
mean,
huge challenge even for Daryl in 13 as he came into a schedule that was extremely, extremely problematic in a first year. So that's going to be a big challenge for the next person that gets this job, and we'll know that.
The message then was that Purdue could win
I
in
know.
2013, and that was
Unfortunately, it wasn't
not
true.
the right message.
Yeah.
Purdue could not win.
Yeah.
And
And you're not going to hear, in fairness to the past regime, you're not going to hear Mike Babinski, my guess is, or the new coach say, "Hey, we can't win." But you are going to have to temper it to some extent on the front end. Win fast, I mean. So that's what's going to be interesting to watch. So predictions will be on the website here before long, and we are going to take a short break, bring Brian Newbert in, and Stacy will be here for segment 3. Landon Feichter will join us. We'll look forward to doing that. And of course, if you need to hear more analysis on Purdue Northwestern and on down the line, also check out our Gold and Black Radio. Kyle did a great job with that this morning, and as
Stacey was
Stacy
okay.
and Brian too. And I wasn't
So
good, so I was too long. But we'll look forward to taking a 2-minute break, as we always do. We'll be back for the second segment of Gold and Black Live.